TellyCast, the TV industry news review.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome to another TellyCast. On this week's show, I'm chatting with two leading UK indie bosses. First up is Stu Richards, CEO of indie production company Rockerdale Studios. And following Stu, I catch up with former BBC Entertainment Commissioning Editor and now boss of Manchester indie King of Sunshine Productions, Sohail Shah. They're both coming right up on this week's TellyCast. So my first guest on this week's show is Stu Richards, CEO of disabled-led production company Rockerdale Studios. Welcome to the show, Stu. How are you doing?
I'm superb, thank you, Justin. Superb.
It was lovely to see you in Edinburgh recently. Obviously, you were busy. You were on panels there and, lots of networking. How did you find it? How did you enjoy Edinburgh?
Oh, I loved it, Justin. I loved it. Yeah, I mean, we sort of go up there every year. We work in the sort of comedy industry, and we would usually go up there and see a load of fringe shows, essentially. And I think probably in the past I've been a little bit, I don't know, almost culturally snobby about the TV festival in itself.
So you're an Edinburgh veteran, really, on the fringe side.
Exactly, okay. Yeah. There was this quite puerile sense on my part of thinking that, I don't know, it was almost artistically beneath me. Anyway, I got rid of that from my brain. I embraced it this year. I made a load of new relationships, strengthened. I've had a really bad year, Justin, and now I've got, because of my health, and I got back to myself and I remembered that I actually quite like people. Right. And so, yeah, I met a load of brilliant people there, formed a new gang.
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Obviously, you have health issues. Maybe we'll come to talk about that a little bit later. But first of all, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into TV, Stu? What's your journey to this point where you are now CEO of Rockerdale Studio? I've seen, you've been getting lots of commissions, lots of stuff going on, exciting stuff. And we'll talk about that in a little while. But tell us about your sort of trajectory of your career up to where you are now.
Sure. Well, it's been essentially pretty much all development. When I came out of uni and I sort of wanted to do something, which is quite an academic uni, but I came out and I knew I wanted to do something creative. I got a placement at the BBC in Manchester in development. And I didn't know development was a thing. I didn't know, even when I applied for it, I didn't really know what it was. I didn't know that you could be paid to sit on your ass and come up with ideas for TV shows. And so I did that placement, and from there on in, that was my thing, really. I then worked my way up in development. I worked a few runners' jobs, things like Rich and Judy and stuff like that. But I tended to get sacked a lot, to be honest with you. That wasn't really for me. So I would just get sent back to the office to go and think up ideas. And so the rest of my career from there was moving around some of the bigger indies, doing development stints, 6 months here, 12 months there, in factual and entertainment and that sort of thing. And then when I was about 33, let's say, I'm only 38 now, actually, or maybe 32, I wrote a sitcom on the side, and I used to work for a company called Gogglebox Entertainment, now Primal Media. And I just sort of said to the boss one day, boss, I've written a sitcom. Do you mind if I pitch it? Because I'd been doing stand-up on the side, and so comedy was my first love, although I'd never figured out quite how to get into it, because it's scripted world is a hard thing to penetrate. And so I pitched this script I'd written, and it was commissioned about a week later, and all of a sudden I was a comedy writer as well. So we made that pilot. That went on to become Jerk, which is just entering its third series on the BBC. And so I wrote comedy for a while, and then came Rockerdale, which was a bit of all of the previous stuff combined.
Right. Okay. Now you're based in Manchester, or in on the Greater Manchester. Is that right? Tell us about where you are and what the opportunities are.
Now we're based in North London. Well, I'm based in North London. Our office is Central London. I'm, of course, from Rochdale, hence the name of our company, Rockerdale Studios. So yeah, I started a company in London at probably the worst time in history to start a production company in London.
And that's because of the amount of nations and regions investment that's going on, and the focus of moving, leveling up, to use a Boris Johnson term, who was our former Prime Minister now. But anyway, let's go. We'll cover that in a little bit later. But what was the reason for setting up in North London then, as opposed to Rochdale, where you might have more help, from a nations and regions commissioning perspective?
I mean, quite simply, it's where I live. My wife's from here, and that was it, really. That was where I was based. And I also, met my co-founder of the business, Michelle Singer, our brilliant head of production, who's very much a London girl. So, yeah, here we are. It used to be the best place, didn't it? It used to be the obvious place. When everything happened in London. So when I graduated, I actually studied in London, but it was, you've got to be in London, you've got to be in London. And the annoying thing is now all the commissions are outside of London, but I can't even be annoyed by that because it's exactly what I believe should happen. So there you go.
Yeah, okay.
We spend a lot of our money up north, I should say, and we made a sitcom up in Bradford and got loads of kids from the local area to work there. So it's very much, we're sort of northern at heart, let's say. Yeah, we're northern of soul, but unfortunately not northern of commission quota.
It appears you're having, a whole load of success with a number of shows, and we'll come on to chat about that in a second. But first of all, in my introduction, I introduced Rockerdale as disabled-led production company. And this is obviously something that surfaced more and more over the last year or so as a key issue within television. And many will say, it's about time. Tell us a little bit about your disability, if you're happy to do so. What is your disability and how has it affected your work in the industry?
Sure. Well, I live with chronic pain. And so obviously that is a invisible disability, which means that I don't face the same prejudice that most visibly disabled people do. It just means I'm in pain and working is hard and living is hard and sleeping is hard and that sort of thing, really. So it's probably part of the reason, I think, when I look back, why I didn't go out and work on productions, because I would make errors often later in the day when the sort of pain was getting to me. That's how it sort of played a part in my journey.
Right, okay.
I had never considered myself disabled until, I think it was last year, when I sort of slightly facetiously referred to my coming out. I'd been working with Rosie Jones, a friend of mine. I sort of said to her one day, Rosie, I think I might be disabled. I've just looked at the definition of disability, the sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, the sort of governmental definition of disability. And I went, that's me, isn't it? And I sort of sheepishly asked her opinion on it. And she came back and probably quite rightfully almost attacked me in a way and said, well, what is your version of disability? Is it someone who can't live independently? She said, what about me? I live independently. Am I not disabled? And so she made me feel quite reasonably like a bit of an idiot and exposed my inner ableism. And that was the point in which I just said, yeah, all right, I'm just going to say it now. I am disabled. And so that was, I think, early last year. And since then I've been, I don't know, coming to terms with that, what it is to use that word about yourself and what it means in terms of the industry, and both good and bad, because there is a sense in which the industry is looking to work with more disabled people, and particularly people of, I think, some level of seniority, which includes people who run indies, because there aren't many people who run indies, frankly, who are disabled. And so I've been invited into that conversation, I guess, which I've loudly but tentatively done, really. And it's meant that I've met a load of the brilliant disabled people that are making waves, that are kicking up a fuss about this sort of thing. And so, I don't know, I guess I see it now almost as maybe duty's too strong a word, but sort of duty to push on, to make a noise and to encourage people to use us, this brilliant disabled talent pool.
And it's fantastic that you're doing so. And your productions recently, your Rockerdale productions, they have featured a number of disabled people, both in front and behind the camera, haven't they? Obviously, Rosie Jones is, for people outside the UK or maybe not as familiar with Rosie, she's an actress and a comedian who works with cerebral palsy. She has an amazingly successful career on the back of all the work that she's doing. And I mean, from your perspective, is it something that you're really looking to shine a light on these issues and make it easier for people to work both in front and behind the screen? Tell us about your approach to the disability issues around TV?
The thing is, when you enter this space, there's already so many incredible people doing amazing work. I see my role as someone who can shout about it with a sense of humour, I suppose. And that's both in terms of when I get a platform myself, but also the work that we do. Creatively, I look at a lot of the work that is about disability, the telly shows are about disability. It's often quite passionate and earnest and, occasionally even with its plinky plunky music, a little bit mawkish. And, there's this disabled people talk a lot about this sort of archaic dichotomy in terms of the way we're represented on screen. And it's either often as a victim or a superhero. And of course, right, and most of us are not those things. There's a whole spectrum of disabled people that I want to show in front of camera. That's disabled people who are physically strong, who are mentally strong, who are profoundly immoral, let's say. That's what I tried to do in Jerk, the sitcom. People who are filth bags. Man, they're a horny bunch, disabled people. Oof. Might have a big we're working on a format on that very subject at the moment. But the point is, there's all this sort of disabled people, and I don't just want to see us build as superheroes in the Paralympics or victims in certain documentaries. So I think creatively, we as a company are trying to bring our sense of humour, our sense of mischief and provocativeness to that sort of area, whether the show portrays disability in a sort of core way or an incidental way. Either way, I basically want to show that disabled people are funny, man. So that's in front of the camera.
Do you think the industry has shied away from that in general in the past because perhaps they don't really understand how to represent disabled people? What do you think have been the barriers to doing that sort of show in the past that perhaps aren't there now?
There's a lot of fear, I think, around disabled people. I think there's a sense of, it's let's face it, it's a slightly lefty liberal industry, isn't it? And we as a bunch of people can be a bit sort of, I don't know, protective almost. Oh, you can't show a disabled guy who has all these awful flaws. You can't show someone with cerebral palsy who actually has the wrong opinion or whatever it happens to be, because there's such a fear of portrayal, because there's such a lack of portrayal. So I think there's a fear there, but also the authorship and the ownership of these jokes. When we're writing jokes about a disabled character, I want those jokes to be written by disabled people. They're going to be better jokes, quite frankly, as well as that sense of, it should be written by disabled people. So I think that sense of authorship that we're hopefully working towards. I'm seeing a few more disabled writers. There's still a lack of disabled directors, but I'm trying to push that, and various other people are. Yeah, certainly when it comes to that sort of more mischievous editorial stuff, which is what we're trying to bring. So I think people are listening more now, quite frankly. I think when, the likes of Jack Thorne goes up and makes his speech, I think people are a little bit more able to listen now. That's something I've noticed with commissioners a lot, especially some of the sort of younger, newer commissioners. There's a little bit more adventurousness going, okay, well, tell us about disabled people. Tell us, what do you want to do? Do you want to put on a show? Well, I was going to mention our new format. I probably shouldn't. It hasn't been released yet. But we're doing some crazy stuff with disabled people, basically. And I think the fact that I am disabled enables commissioners to go, okay, all right, well, if you say this is cool, let's do it.
That's one of the perhaps cultural challenges has been in the past, is that this fear of doing the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing or approaching things in the wrong way. And as you say, portraying disabled people in the wrong way. I guess there's comfort there in knowing that you can guide a network, a commissioner, towards, what is funny, what do the disabled community want to talk about as well, and how do they want to be portrayed, and what are the barriers there,
Also, the other thing is just, if you're writing disabled characters or you're showing disabled people, there's this whole experience that hasn't been showed, and therefore it's new stuff. It's shiny new stuff for commissioners, just on a basic, wow, I've never seen that before level, aside from all the, I don't know, the sort of sentimental stuff. Speaking to a deaf friend of mine recently, and she told me, have you ever heard a phrase for description of when two deaf people have sex. And I said, no. She said they call it Wookiee sex. Now that joke coming from someone else is dark and distasteful, right? A deaf friend tells me, I go, that's funny. That's fun. But we haven't seen that joke I've never seen that joke on television. But give me a comedy script by a deaf person, we can do that joke and we can all laugh with the deaf person rather than at the deaf person. Certainly from a comedic point of view, there's this whole pool of jokes that no one's done yet. Yeah. Right. So from a point of view of someone who's a producer, forgetting the fact that I'm disabled, who wants to find new jokes and new voices, then they're there waiting to be heard, waiting to be commissioned, which is an absolute delight for me, even from the most cynical business point of view. It's the same with the talent pool, quite frankly. I realized recently that the more I talk about how everyone should hire the brilliant disabled people, I realize, oh God, that means there's fewer for me to take. Come on. There's all this talent that nobody knew about before. And the more I talk about them, I realize I'm really doing myself in. It's not good business, to be honest. But
yeah. And if you're working, for example, on a practical level, and this is going to sound a horribly business-oriented question, but does having disabled people on the production behind the screen as well as in front, but specifically behind the screen, does that make a show more expensive?
That is a really good question and one we're dealing with at the moment. And I think, by the way, that we do need to have these business conversations because I think they sometimes get lost in more activisty style conversations. The answer is sometimes it can do. What needs to come along with that sentiment, however, is well, what do we do about that? Because the answer being, well, you don't have the money, therefore don't spend it, therefore don't hire the disabled people is frankly not an option. And that's been happening too long. So the question is, well, what do you do about it? And there are certain things like disabled people can get access to work scheme, but if I'm honest, that's slow and not good enough, quite frankly. So the conversation we're having at the moment with the broadcaster is, well, the money's going to have to come from you guys. It ultimately, if I need to pay for, I don't know, there's all manner of things that you might need to pay for. But this isn't, by the way, all disabled people, but some you might need to pay for certain reasonable adjustments. But commissioners need to be aware of that. They need to have, quite frankly, the balls to go to their seniors and go, look, this might cost a bit more. Or we need to add something to the budget here. We need to add an access coordinator to the budget. In an ideal world, all big productions, in an ideal world, all productions would have an access coordinator. That means that disabled people can go to that person. So the more we start introducing things like that, the more we start normalizing the idea that sometimes you're just going to have to pay for stuff. Otherwise you're leaving disabled people out of the conversation. And that, frankly, it's just straight up discrimination, isn't it? So yeah, I think it's a really good question, and I think those and by the way, there isn't always, and people might get cross at me for saying this, but there isn't always a super obvious answer here. But what I think there must always be is an open conversation.
Yeah.
And if people who run indies are a bit worried, they don't know what to do. God, is this going to cost me a little bit more money? They need to start saying that to commissioners, and commissioners need to start saying it to the people who, frankly, give them the money. It needs to be hard, and I can't stress enough, you don't need to have all the answers. It can be complicated. I call myself I say I run a disabled-led production company. I don't understand every disabled person's needs. How could I? There's millions of them. But what I can do is listen, ask people what they need, and try my bloody well hardest to facilitate that for them. But it needs to be a conversation that goes right to the top, to the people who run channels, who run broadcasters. How can we do this? What do we need to do? Like, you tell us. That's what they need to be saying to the disabled community. Yeah. And hopefully that is happening more and more. And we've got some brilliant disabled people who do have positions now at broadcasters that are pushing for stuff. So yeah, it's complicated, but if you don't try, then it's never going to happen.
Yeah. We've seen a number of initiatives in the UK industry that are starting to be developed and launched. There's one in particular called TAP, TV Access Project, which is being created by the BBC and lots of other national and international channels on board with that. And a lot of that was actually, developed in the wake of Jack Thorne. You mentioned Jack Thorne earlier on, his McTaggart lecture at Edinburgh in 2021, which set a lot of that in train. Yeah, and I'd love to have Jack on the show. And actually, to talk about this issue, we can't just boil this down to a half an hour chat between you and I. Obviously, this is something that requires a deeper conversation. So I'd love to go into this in a little bit more detail on a future show, and love you to be part of that as well, Stu. So we'll return to the issue as a whole. Just coming back to Rockerdale then, tell us about your recent productions then. I know you mentioned you can't talk about what you're working on right now and fully understand that, but tell us about your recent productions, and also congratulations on your investment from the Channel 4 Growth Fund.
Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? Yeah, it's a little boost to the old reputation.
How's it going to change your business then, that investment?
Well, on a basic level, it just gives us more resources to invest in things like development. When you're a small indie, especially one that is sort of development led, like, I'm a development guy, so we're very much an idea led company in that sense. It means that if you can widen your development team, then you can serve more commissioner briefs, quite frankly. What happens when you pitch a load of ideas to commissioners and you're super small is that you get a sort of development bottleneck. You've pitched all these ideas and a load of commissioners love them. But you've then got to go away and create the deck or create the tape or whatever it happens to be. So yeah, this money's enabled us to do that, which enables us to grow and grow and grow. And there's also that reputational boost. I think ultimately people probably think, well, if Channel 4 backed them, they must be all right.
Yeah, so, they've done their due diligence on you. So yeah, absolutely.
And also it's a tonal match for us. You know what I mean? Channel 4 is perhaps the most mischievous broadcaster, so it's a perfect home for us in that sense. We also get access to some of the wisdom in the Channel 4 Growth Fund higher up, and quite frankly, me and my business partner get to pay ourselves a proper salary for the first time. I know you don't often hear this level of conversation, I suppose, about people who start their own indies, but the amount of shoots I've been on where I'm being paid less than the junior researcher or whatever. Yeah. And now you can go, boom. That sort of takes away some of that worry that you have as a small business owner with a life to pay for.
Yeah, and helps you focus, right? It helps you focus on the business.
Absolutely. It just gives you that extra energy, that extra kick. So from that point of view, we're already seeing the rewards from it, from all those points of view.
Glad to hear it. And just about your recent projects then, Stu. So we talked a bit about Rosie Jones and the projects you've been working on with her. There was also a deep fake project you worked on for Channel 4. Tell us a bit about that.
Oh, yeah, that was crazy, man. We pitched Channel 4 Digital, for the brilliant people at Force Studio. Some of our best relationships are there. They're a sort of slightly more adventurous bunch than certain other places in the industry. So really exciting for us. So we pitched them an idea that was that used deepfake technology to create YouTube tutorials presented by some of the biggest face names on earth. So we thought, would it be funny if Barack Obama, for example, showed you how to clean mold off your bathroom tiles, like a regular YouTube tutorial? So we pitched that idea, and they went for it. We'd been working with the best deepfake guy in the business, and we were telling people this, and we were pitching ideas with deepfake, and people were going, I don't know about this, man. Like, because some of the deepfake you see is let's face it, a bit shit. And so we got, no, we have the best guy in the business, and he was, because about 3 months after we made it, he got recruited by George Lucas to work on his stuff. We made 2 in the end of these tutorials. We made Greta Thunberg's climate change dance tutorial. So we had it was essentially a sort of a TikTok dance tutorial that Greta had come up with herself, and we made our own track for it, our own hip hop track for it, using a brilliant rapper from Bradford. And she would show you this climate change dance and the moves related to various aspects of climate change. And we created this character of Greta as being quite witty, quite sarcastic, quite, because we like Greta. The idea wasn't to lampoon Greta. The idea was to sort of create a slightly more extreme version of Greta, a wittier, a funnier, a more cutting Greta Thunberg. So we got a brilliant impressionist to play Greta, Katja Kvinga, and then we did the deepfake magic, and so it looks for all the world like Greta Thunberg's giving you a dance tutorial. That was a sort of adventurous nonsense that we like to do. I guess our thing is sort of doing purposeful stuff with sort of purposeful stuff smuggled inside the Trojan horse of comedy is how I like to describe our work. And that was a classic example of a message about climate change, but utter nonsense around it.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll include a link in the episode description to Greta and also the Rosie Jones series that you've been working on, and one or two other things as well. So you can go and have a look at Rockerdale's work. And now it's time for Story of the Week, where my guests get to choose their TV industry story that's caught their eye in the past 7 days. Stu, what's your story of the week?
Justin, she's gone. Nadine Dorry, she's gone. It's over.
Yeah, she has. That is true. In the depths of the night, I think she left, which is the UK Culture Secretary has decided to sling her hook, and which opens up lots of discussion about where Channel 4 is going, what's going to happen with the BBC, which is, this has been one of the biggest issues that's been dominated the UK industry over the last year or so, hasn't it? Under this government, which has threatened all sorts of disruption and change within their current funding models.
Look, we shouldn't fool ourselves into thinking that we're going to get some Channel 4 loving minister to replace her. But maybe, just maybe, the next person who comes into that job, it works in politics. It was someone else. It's a bit like commissioning, isn't it? When you think you're about to get a commission with someone, and then there's a commissioner change, and the new guy comes in and like, nah, that's shit, man. I want to do something new. I'm hoping that maybe the new person comes in and goes, well, we've got digital, we've got culture and sport. Maybe there's some more interesting, important things for us to do here, and maybe they will pursue that with a little less vigor. I might be being very naive. I don't know. But my God, it's a joy to see her go. She didn't even understand how Channel 4 worked, did she?
Yeah, that's right. There were some famous clips of her, seemingly misunderstanding the funding model of Channel 4, which was quite terrifying, I guess, for a lot of the indies and a lot of the industry that not only relies on Channel 4, but, sees Channel 4 as being, a really important player, which it is on a global scale, actually, within the industry. And it has its important public service broadcaster remit.
Yeah, I think she's going to become like a lord now, isn't she? Or a lady or whatever.
Well, maybe so. We'll wait and see. Well, let's see. Maybe by the time this show comes out, we'll have the replacement been announced, and there'll be a whole different conversation on next week's show. So let's see how that develops. And now it's time for Hero of the Week and Get in the Bin. Stu, who's your Hero of the Week?
The Cripperati. Right. Weird thing to say. I'm going to tell you who it is. It's my new gang. When I went up to Edinburgh last week, I met up with a bunch of some of the real big dog disabled people who are shaking shit up in the industry. Now, the particular story that I'm going to hang this on is the Alternative McTaggart lecture. The glorious Caroline O'Neill, who's one of my disability gurus in the field, her session with Rose Ayling-Ellis at Edinburgh was magnificent. She said it was time for the most senior leaders in the industry. It's time for you to put in the work. She talked about tokenism, about how she has to plaster on a smile so people won't think that, oh, when you hire a deaf person, they're sad or annoyed or whatever. It's frustrating, all these other things in the industry, but it's not frustrating for me to be deaf. She said, I am disabled because I live in a world that disables me. So Caroline O'Neill, one of my favourite people in the Cripperati, but there's also the rest of the gang. Ali Castle, the instigator of Channel 4's Disability Code of Portrayal. She talked about core and incidental and integrate. It was brilliant. Nicola Gard, who runs Elevate at the BBC. Sam Tatlow at ITV. Genevieve Barr, one of the co-writers with Jack Thorne of When Barbara Met Alan. Kate Monaghan, who runs Hey Sonny, her recent documentary Disability and Abortion on Channel 4, wonderful. Brian E. Arnold, producer of that. Sherry Lee Houston and Monique Jarrett of Triple C, won a BAFTA recently. Shari De Silva, Charlie Swinburne, Kate Ansell, one of the few disabled commissioners. Something is building here, Justin. Something is happening. I like to call them inspirational because that's one of the most offensive things you can say to disabled people. But the point is, these people are funny, they're smart. There's a few fucking lunatics in there, which is wonderful. My God, some of them are filthy too. But these are the people really making a noise about this issue, and I hang off every word they say, frankly. So my heroes of the week are my new gang, the Cripperati.
All right. Okay. And who or what are you telling to get in the bin?
My God, did you see that thing on This Morning yesterday where they did basically a poverty wheel of fortune?
Yes, I did see that. Yeah, it's a viral hit for everybody outside the UK.
Bill and Holly had effectively a little item on their show where they had a wheel, think like the Wheel of Fortune, and on that you could win certain amounts of money. And one of the options was to win your bills. This in a cost of living crisis where people are going to be shafted on their bills this year, which have 5-10-fold. It's going to sink so many people into poverty or further into poverty. Businesses are going to shut down. And they were playing this as effectively a wacky little game show. I mean, what next? Burns victims compete for a skin graft? A sort of touch the truck style game show where flood victims must keep their fingers on a raft? Who as an industry, who do we think we are that we can play God in this way? It's obscene. It's dystopian, is what it is. It's like an episode of Black Mirror.
That's
so that
right.
Can get in the bin for me. The people whose idea that was, and the people who carried it off.
Yeah, but many people, they felt it was, culturally and morally tone deaf, actually, the way that it was delivered. So we'll put a little clip of that as well on the episode description so people can have a look and judge for themselves. But yeah, it was one of those jaw-dropping moments. Stu, thank you so much for joining me. We could talk for a long time about a lot of the issues that you raised and wider issues in the industry. And indeed, we will do. We'll return to disability in TV and we'll bring some other experts in and maybe have a bit of a round table about that, a bit of a wider discussion.
Justin, can I say one quick thing?
Yeah.
Before we leave. If you're listening to this and you work for a production company and there's no disabled people in your office, do me a favour and just ask your boss why that is. That's all. I'm not saying make a big noise. Just ask them. Let's see what happens. I figure if everyone does, who knows where we can get to. That's me done. All
right, Stu, thanks so much. There we go. We'll speak to you very soon. Thanks for coming on the show. Thanks, Stu.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
My next guest on this week's show is former BBC Entertainment commissioning editor and now boss of Manchester indie King of Sunshine Productions, Sohail Shah. Welcome to the show, Sohail. How are you doing?
Hey, Justin. You okay?
I'm very well. Yeah, it was. I've just had Stu Richards on, who I saw up in Edinburgh. I also saw you as well. It was lovely to see you. How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you very much. I'm still recovering from Edinburgh, actually. I've not talked so much in probably about 3 years, so I'm still a little bit tired from it, even though it was over a week ago. But it was nice to see everyone. Yeah,
it was. The bank holiday Monday that followed was much needed, I would say. Basically, I don't think I got off the sofa. Before we find out a little bit more about King of Sunshine, tell us about how you first got into TV. It's something that I was just chatting with Stu about. Give us an idea of how you got into the business and the path that led you to where you are now.
I suppose I did it the old-fashioned normal way, if there is a normal way. I went to school and then just did my exams and everything. Thought, what do I want to do when I go to university? And I'd always planned to do journalism. Written journalism, so that was in my head. And then I had a Saturday job at WH Smith while I was doing my GCSEs and A levels and stuff. And a presenter of a new kids show used to come in every weekend and just buy like loads and loads of magazines, and that was the department I worked in. And I just remember thinking, wow, she must have like loads of money because look at all these magazines that she's buying. She must be like wadded. And I actually used to watch the program that she presented. It was a kids program. I just said hello one week and she said, oh, hi, how are you? And I said, yeah, fine. And then I saw her again a couple of times. And then I went into the store when I wasn't working. It was just a regular weekend. I went in with my dad because we were getting something, and she happened to be in there again. I said to my dad, she presents a program, and he said, oh, we'll go and say hello. And I said, oh, no, because I was very shy. I said, oh, no, it's fine. So then he went over and said hello to her, and then somehow managed to bring her over to where I was stood and said, oh, can I introduce my son? I was like, oh, hi. I was only 16, very, very quiet, very shy. She said, oh, yeah, no, how are you doing? I was like, yeah, I'm good, thanks. And I just said, oh, yeah, something stupid like I really like your show. And then she went, oh, yeah, no, great, thanks. Is there anything you don't like about it? And I wasn't about to say no because that's just rude. So I said, no, I think it's all great, but everyone sounds like they're off Emmerdale. And then she kind of like laughed and said, oh, it's funny you should say that because we film it in Leeds. And I went, oh, right, yeah. So that was that. I didn't think anything of it. And she said, you should write to the producers and tell them that. And I went, okay, yeah, I will, thinking I'm not going to do that. And then we just went home, and that was it. And then we were having dinner, and my dad said, "Oh, what did she say? What did you talk about?" And I said, "Well, I said I liked her show," and she said that I should write to them and tell them that they all sound like they're off Emmerdale. He said, "Right, well, when you finish your dinner, you can write that letter then, can't you?" And I thought, I'm not writing that letter, but he told me to, and I had to, because you do what your parents say at that age. So I wrote this letter and sent it off and didn't think anything about it, and then got a letter back in the days of letters, because it's the very, very early 90s. And I got a letter back within a couple of days from Yorkshire Television saying, "Oh, we read your letter. It was very interesting we like hearing from people. Would you like to come into the studio to have a look around the studio?" That's right, yeah, because it was coming to an end. So I just said, "Oh, yeah, I've never been to a TV studio. I'd love to, but it'll have to wait until half term because I'm at school." And they went, yeah, fine. So they arranged it, and I went down, had a look around, and I'd never been to a television studio before, and thought it was just amazing. It was so exciting because they did countdown there, and that was in the foyer. They did play your cards right, and there was a picture of that. And then I went into this separate room where all these games consoles were, because it was a game show. And at 15, what more do you want when you're a boy other than playing video games and getting games and playing games that have not been released yet as well? So I kind of was like playing all these games on these different machines and talking to the producer and just telling her what I thought of them. And that was it. So I thought that my day was over. I went outside, and they'd ordered a car to take me back to the station, which is very sweet of them. She just said, "Oh, do you think you could say all that again on camera?" And I went, "Yeah, probably," thinking, I don't know what you mean, but yeah, because you always say yeah. And then the car arrived, and she goes, "Right, well, we'll see you in September, Sohail." And I went, "All right, see you in September," as if to say, thanks. And then that was it. And then I got home, and then a couple of days later, I went back to school, and this letter arrived, and it was a contract in the post signing me up to do the next series, to be one of their reviewers on it. So I kind of ended up being on it by accident. I thought they were asking me to go back and have another look around the studio in September, which is what I was expecting. And I was more than happy to do that because I really enjoyed it the first time. But they actually asked me to be on it. So I did that. I ended up doing it for, I think it was 3 series over 4 years-ish,
Right.
something like that. And that is what made me then decide that journalism is still something I wanted to do, but I maybe wanted to do broadcast journalism because I was very interested in how the show was put together and how the cameras worked and everything like that. More so how the show was put together rather than the technical side, but it was just amazing being in a studio with all this stuff, and then them allowing us to go into the gallery and see all the vision mixing desks and all the monitors and talking to the director. Well, at the time, now everyone goes, "Oh, I don't know how old you are," but when I was 15, I pretty much looked how I look now. So I looked a hell of a lot older than I actually was. So I think they treated me as if I was older, because apart from the people who knew that I actually was 15, 16 when I started, I think anyone else walking past would probably just go, "Oh, he probably works in the studios, or he works at Yorkshire TV," because I did look older. So no one ever really spoke to me like they did the other people, which was very sweet, and it helped me a lot because I kind of felt confident enough, because I was very, very shy. I was a very, very shy young person, especially when you're the youngest in a family as well. You don't really say very much. I never really said very much. So I just kind of thought, this is great, and maybe this is what I want to do. So whilst I was still on the show, I was doing my A-levels at that point. When I applied to university, I applied to do media studies in some way, which is what I ended up doing in Liverpool. And I went to Liverpool to do that. But there's a big difference between a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old, as we know, whether it's a boy or a girl, and that applies to everyone. So whereas I was very kind of excited, and I mean, I always kept it sort of quiet that I was on it. If someone saw the show, then fine. And at that point, everybody kind of, well, certainly everyone at school was watching it, because I didn't tell anybody that I was on it. I didn't tell anyone that I'd got the job. I didn't tell anyone that I was filming or whatever. And then I was on episode 1 of the new series, which went out on a Thursday. And I went into school on Friday, and everybody had seen it. I didn't think anybody had watched. I don't know why I thought that, because I watched it. So I thought that they wouldn't. But then everyone knew about it. And that's when kind of I got a bit self-conscious about it again, because you just do when you're young anyway, don't you?
Yeah, well, you must have been the coolest kid in the school, right? Surely.
Justin, you've met me. I've never been the coolest person in the room ever. When I was 15, 25, 35, or indeed now at 45, I think to be a presenter, which is absolutely not what I wanted to be, it was a complete quirk that ended up happening. But something that I'm grateful for, because it kind of then directed me into what I did want to do, which possibly at that point I didn't realise that I'd wanted to do. And I think you have to be a certain type of person to want to be a presenter. And thank God that there are people that do want to do that, because then it saves it for the rest of us not having to do it. I mean, I've never done it since, and I wouldn't do it again. It's not my bag.
The moral of this story is thanks to your dad, right? Who actually went over and opened that door for you. So good on him.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, don't worry.
Excellent.
It reminds me of it every day.
So you went to uni, and then what happened next?
I went to uni in Liverpool, and even though I'm from Manchester, but I lived in Liverpool, but obviously still within the Northwest. And at that time, they don't really have it anymore because it's all ITV, sort of homogenous across the country. But back then, they had the region system where everyone had, we still got local news, but you had Granada, you had Yorkshire TV, you had Grampian, HTV Wales, all those kind of things. So everywhere had their own sections. Granada, or Granada Land, as I still call it, Granada Land obviously had Corrie, which is the best show in the whole world, but it also made Stars in Their Eyes and Love Me Do, and it had done big dramas like Jewel in the Crown and all these amazing things. And they all came out of Granada Television, which is a stone's throw from my house. It's like 10 minutes on the bus, if that. And I'd always sort of taken that for granted. So when I was at uni and sort of crystallized that I wanted to get into television, I was very lucky that I was at uni, but then going over to Leeds to do for the first year anyway, and then the show ended, recording in Leeds. And then I thought, well, what do I do? What can I utilize at home when I've got this sort of big, massive building on my doorstep that's making all these different types of shows? Is there any way that I can get in there, for work experience, or, over the summer holidays, or whatever it was? And then with a view to getting a job at the end of it. And, I just read a lot and went to the library, got some net back in the days, because this is pre-internet, so you had to make phone calls and read stuff, and just found names of people and wrote them letters and just said, this is me. I'm at uni. Could I come in for a week or two to see what you're doing and all this? So I had Granada, but then also just a stone's throw away from there on Oxford Road, there was BBC Manchester as well. So I wrote to them and did exactly the same thing. I got a response from Granada. They were just like, well, we haven't got anything in the main building, but we've got the satellite stations which are about to open, which at the time were Granada Plus and Granada Men and Motors. And Men and Motors was the one that I wanted to work on, because it was described as TFI Friday on satellite. And that was like the show that everyone was watching. Probably not made on the same budget. I mean, it was hilarious. And it was made with lots of like young people and newbies to the industry. And I wrote to them, and they got me in for a meeting, and then they gave me a placement, and ended up working there for weeks and weeks over the summer. And then they actually offered me a job, which I didn't take because I wanted to finish uni. But I went back there every holiday and just made a lot of friends. And actually that whole kind of Granada bubble of satellite stations, so many people came out of there. So Andrew Linares worked there when I was there, one of the original Pop Idol producers, and he now lives in LA and did Dancing with the Stars up until very recently. I think he did Idol over there as well. Becky Patworth worked there, who now runs Can, who makes Steph's Pat Lunch. Mike Spencer was the head of it all, who then went on to set up Multimedia Arts. There was like this massive kind of group of young people who, some had worked in telly before and some hadn't, but then just lots and lots of newbies who then learnt their craft there and then went on to bigger shows, and then sort of over the years did loads of other things as well. So I kind of not really rode that wave because I went back to uni, but then I kind of got to know them all and stayed there. And then weirdly, after I graduated, rather than saying, well, I'm sure I'll get a job at Granada, me being me, because I never do anything twice really, which partly by design, but it's just worked out that way. I just thought, well, I've done all that now. So if I'm going to start working, why would I want to go and work there again? I've done it. So where else is there for me to go? So then I applied to all the independents in Manchester. And at that time there were loads. So it was a bit of a, not that you would get a job, but, there was enough places for me to sort of find out who worked there and write to. And I did. Like I graduated in July, took 3 months off because we had a family wedding, and then started looking, going, right, what do I need to do? And then I got a job at Straight TV and started working there in the January on Planet Pop, which was part of T4, just as T4 was getting bigger and bigger. And that's when my proper working life started. And I ended up working there for about a year and a bit, office runner, and then the program runner on Planet Pop, then made it to researcher, got very ill while I was there, so took a bit of time off, then went back. At that point, Queer as Folk was on. I think it was episode 2 had just gone out, and I'd heard the rumour that Channel 4 had already wanted them to do like a follow-up. It was supposed to be, I think it was a film at that point to round it all off. So I wrote this thing sort of saying, wouldn't it be great if we did a documentary about the impact of the series whilst being there on set during the recording of this movie that they were going to make. So it was literally a one-page, a couple of paragraphs, and I gave it to Tony and he really liked it. And as a complete coincidence, some people from Channel 4 were coming into the office to talk about, I think it was like clip sales or something sales, I don't know, it's nothing to do with me. But they came in and he mentioned to them about this idea. And they went, well, actually, that's really interesting because we're just starting a new department for these things called DVDs. And this could be a really good DVD when we put this in the shop. So we can put it on the video cassette and we can put it on the DVD as well. And to show how different DVDs are, we can do one version for the DVD that's longer and a shorter version for the VHS, because that'll only be like a 90-minute tape or something. All this stuff, I had no clue what they were going on about. And also they said, oh, and we're starting a new channel called E4 and it might look really good on E4. They ended up commissioning it. That was kind of like my first commission, if you like. And I got it when I was a runner, which I'm very, very proud about. But that kind of gave me the bug to do development and production at the same time, which I've always done, which some people can't get their head around, but I kind of think it's natural. And it really annoys some people as well. And I don't know why. It's like, look, it's no skin off your nose if I'm doing both. If you want to do it, do it. It's get out my face, you know. But
So fast forward to the point where you're at BBC Entertainment. It's obviously you've had a really robust career in TV and, you know, learning on the job. That's obviously very valuable. In terms of your time as a commissioning editor at Entertainment, what do you think you learnt from your period there? First of all, how long were you there?
I was there from January 15 to February 17, I think. So 2 years I was there.
Right. What was it that you think that you've learnt most from your time within the BBC as a commissioner that you're putting into practice now as a producer?
I think what it's given me is another insight into programme making that I didn't have until I went to the other side of the desk, if that makes sense. I had 15 years of production experience before I went into the commissioning world.
And was the BBC Entertainment role, was that your first commissioning job?
Yeah, so it was the assistant commissioner scheme that was supposed to be for a year, and then they ended up asking us to stay. I'd always wanted to be a commissioner, and I'd applied for commissioner jobs before. Never even got an interview, in fact. And then this one, I applied for having already been offered another job, which was going to mean a complete change of life and me moving to a different country. And in a way, I think that's why I went for it, because I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose, because I've already got a job. I know I'm moving. This has come along. It would be really good, but I'm never going to get an interview, so I'll just apply. And then I applied, and then I got an interview, and I did the interview, and then I could say, oh, well, at least I've done a BBC panel interview now, because I've never done one. And then they offered me the job, and I was like, oh, well, that's a bit weird, because I didn't see that coming. What do I do now? And actually, the minute they offered it to me, it kind of, as amazing as the other job was, it was a no-brainer. It was what I wanted to do. And that's the reason I was moving anyway, because I was always thinking, well, why am I getting passed over for these jobs when that's what I want? And then I got offered it. I took it. And I think what I took into the job, you know, possibly sometimes unfair preconceptions I had about commissioners, it wasn't all dissipated by any means, but it gave me an appreciation for what commissioners have to do. It doesn't matter if you're a commissioner at the BBC or ITV or Channel 4 or Channel 5 or anywhere. You know, you have your personal taste that you might want to commission a show. But obviously, you are probably one of several commissioners in a team or in a department, you know, on a channel. And what you want isn't necessarily what the channel A needs at that time, or B fits with something else that's already there. It should complement the schedule. It's not ego-led. It's not about what you want, you know. And there are lots of levels of tick before something gets greenlit. So when it does get greenlit, it's really great. And I was always very aware of the fact that, having worked in development, pitching ideas, working in production, taking notes from commissioners, I know how it works. You know, a lot of people, this is going to get me skinned alive, but I'm not just saying commissioning, but, you know, lots of people who work in TV, some people are not great. You know, some people shouldn't, I don't think, even be working in television full stop, let alone whatever level they're at. But I'd like to think that I knew what I was doing. But taking those commissioner behaviours of the people that I liked working for and taking notes from, emulating those good practices for people that would then be coming to me with ideas and requiring notes on stuff, bringing your own personality to it, and then absolutely not replicating the behaviours of the people that, you know, we all know who they are, where you send a cut over with a deadline going, we need this picture locked by, you know, X o'clock, and they've not read it, or you send them an idea saying we need to know because the talent is dependent on this, and then they don't get back to you, and then they might send you some, you know, very, very curt email going, oh, I didn't realize this was important. Like, I can't be doing, and that's not just commissioning, that's just people in, you know, that's a behavior in general that I can't abide. I don't encourage it. I don't feel bad about calling it out now as well, but I think that's an age thing. And if I'm honest, probably a little bit of the fact that I've got this like hangover going, well, I used to be a commissioner and I would never treat people like that, so you can't treat me like that. So maybe I have that, other people wouldn't do that. Or maybe I'm just a bit of a gobby one, I don't know. When you go into commissioning, anybody who wants to be a commissioner, you think it's going to be one thing, and you get there and you realise it's not. It's not what you think it's going to be. But for me personally, I was very kind of like, well, let's just see how we go. And I absolutely loved it. It's the best job I've ever had. I enjoyed it from start to finish. I was very lucky with the shows that I was given. I was very lucky with the commissions that I was able to get off the ground. And I had lovely companies to work with. Obviously, you know, the odd ups and downs, of course, but it was great. And I think you have to learn that it's not about you and it's not your idea. You know, it's the company's idea. You're just the custodian of that IP for however long you are pitching it for. Because, you know, you've got to realize as well, you're probably not the only person that they've taken that idea to, because everybody needs to get commissions. So I wasn't under any illusions there. But if I liked an idea, you know, and the company had done what was needed and, you know, it was a collaborative thing, I would like to think anyway, they felt confident that they had someone on their side that was trying to get the best deal for that show and trying to get it over the line, because I always said that I would. And I was always very open going, look, if I'm not interested in this idea, I'm probably not the best person, and also it's probably not a good idea because, you know, X, Y, Z. But if it was something that I was very passionate about, I would absolutely champion it. But, you know, as I said, just because I like something, it doesn't mean that the head of the channel or the head of the department, before it even goes to the head of the channel, is going to be on the same page. In an ideal world, everyone's aligned, and it does get that way, and that's how you get a commission away. I cut them a lot more slack, having said all that, disclaimer, but now I'm back pitching stuff. Now I'm like, come on, have you not got any news for me? I need to know because we've got payroll to make and all that.
Do you feel that your commissioning strike rate has improved since you've been a commissioner?
Well, do you know what? I don't know. I can't really answer because I didn't have the company before I became a commissioner. Whereas if I did and I didn't have any commissions, then I went to be a commissioner and now I did, I could say, oh yeah, I've got many more now. It's that insight I was talking about. It's given me the insight. And also, you know, no shock horror, because I've been at that level and you kind of sort of, you remain friends with the people that you're working with and you meet people that are on the same sort of like commissioning level as you at other channels as well. You know, you're still kind of like, oh, how's it all going? And, you know, not that anyone's giving me any heads up. I don't mean that at all, but it's nice to know how things are going. And then you can kind of go, oh, right, okay. My strike rate, I suppose, is probably better now only because I understand how things work a little bit more than I did before. I thought I knew how things worked before, and I think everybody does, which is why we all get really annoyed when we get no's going, well, that commissioner's crap, they don't know what they're on about. It's a surefire hit.
Tell us what you're working on now and, you know, what you're looking to achieve with your indie.
We set up in October, November 2019. After I had moved back to Manchester a couple of months earlier. So I was in London and I moved back to Manchester to be near a family. My dad wasn't very well and my brother wasn't very well. So I moved back full time and then thought, what do I do? And I decided to set up the company. And I always said if I was going to do it, it was always going to be in Manchester anyway. So it just kind of expedited that somewhat. So we set up in November 19. I just thought I'd spend a couple of months sort of introducing myself to people at channels, you know, people that I might have worked with, people that either I had commissioned or people had come to me with their ideas, just sort of saying, this is what I was doing, this is what I'm doing now, what are you looking for? And I was going to give myself a few months of doing that and then go hell for leather, sort of like in the January after the Christmas. But then obviously the virus sort of everyone started talking about the virus in January 2020, and then in March everything shut down. I was like, that's not a great start. But then luckily, and I'm very, very thankful for it, we were one of the first companies in the country to get an original commission in lockdown for a whole new show, not just a reversion or a repeat.
Oh, what was that?
That was a 2-hour countdown show called Britain's Favourite Detective. We didn't know how long this was going to last, and also how widespread it was going to be, and what that meant. So it was that point where when they said lockdown, it was lockdown and no one was leaving the house. Everything was closed. The supermarkets had all that stuff, but all telly had basically disappeared, and the soaps had announced that they were going to stop filming, which is like, that to me was the big thing, going, oh my God, if the soaps aren't on, like, there's literally not going to be anything. But people did want new things to watch, and there just wasn't anything. So I just thought, well, if we physically can't go out and film anything, because filming was completely out at that point because no one could see each other, I thought, well, how do you make a program that's got no filming in it? Well, you use archive. If it's just archive and you can't have any interviews about the archive, where do you get the interviews from? Well, you use interviews that have already been shot, and you use voiceover, and it's all done remotely. Is that possible? And I just looked at the schedules across the 5 linear channels and thought, right, okay, what can we do? And it was only when looking at a week at a glance that you notice that there's lots and lots of lots of police procedurals and detective shows, and loads of them are on ITV. Actually, I spoke to Joe Mace, who I love, at ITV, and just said, how about if we did a countdown show where we get the audience involved and give them a list of detectives, and they choose their top 25, and we reveal who their favourite detective is. So Britain's favourite detective, as simple as that. And it can be done exactly how I said, sort of all edited remotely. The stuff's already been shot, hopefully, on other shows, and we piece it all together with wonderful clips of all these brilliant shows, and we have the voiceover on it. So Joe liked that, took it to the channel, and then Kevin and Rosemary, I think it was more Rosemary, sort of just thought, that's really good. Why don't we make a virtue of the fact that we're going to do this big reveal, and we can make an event of it? So the actual reveal show itself went out on Bank Holiday Monday, but for 6 nights leading up to it, every night at 8:00 on ITV, there was a different detective show for you to watch. So they had and they're all 2 hours. So you had a Morse, you had a Vera, all the way through, just say it. And then at the end of each of those shows, there was, and all the way through in the commercials, but particularly at the end, there was the on-screen direction too. And if you want to know who Britain's favourite detective is, tune in on Bank Holiday Monday for the big reveal. And that's what happened. And we got Sheridan Smith to do the voiceover for it, who actually was in Jonathan Creek, so she was in it as well. So that was kind of nice. Right. That became our first commission. And then during that, we got a commission with Channel 5 as well about celebrity breakups, which is much more my showbizy background. So we did that. And that one actually did have a bit of filming on it, but it was all done on high-quality iPhone and edited remotely, and we did that as well. That's how we kind of found our way through that, and then things opened up a little bit more. And then off the back of some stuff we did on Britain's Favourite Detective, we developed a relationship with Agatha Christie Limited, and it was 100 years of the first Poirot book, Mysterious Affair at Styles, and I pitched them an idea about, would you be interested in us doing a feature documentary about Agatha's life, sort of about her, and alongside the evolution of Hercule Poirot, because basically everything that happened in Agatha's life went into those books. They're all influenced. So we kind of told those 2 stories in tandem, and had lots of people in it. And ironically, going from a show that was edited completely remotely with no filming at all, we went to a show that was filmed completely on location with a host and numerous interviewees, and loads of places as well, like the Orient Express and Burr Island and Greenway, her home, and all these things. And then we got Richard E. Grant to present it as well. We ended up with an RTS nomination for it, so that was kind of cool. So that was year 1, and then that kind of helped us grow. And I brought Paul in as a co-director, Paul Sandler, who's the best in the world. And I'd worked with Paul previously at a few places. That was me actively wanting to grow the company, because when you open a company, you want to get as much work as you can, and you want to have a catalogue, and you want to build. I want to have a company where people I've worked with before feel like they want to stay, and they might want to come back and do other shows. I want to base here. So Paul came on board he was the CFO of Cats on the Roof Media that had various labels underneath it. That sort of like ended in 2021. But one of those labels was Second Act Productions, run by Lee Hupfield, and they made the brilliant Meet the Richardsons. Meet the Richardsons had been on for a couple of years, a couple of series, and was continuing to do well. But obviously then the company sort of wound down. Dave was still very interested in carrying on that show. Lee sort of like came on board, as did the team. And King of Sunshine now produces Meet the Richardsons. So we've just finished filming Series 4. It's in edit at the moment. And we will be filming Series 5 next year as well. So that's great. Really happy about that.
That's on Dave, isn't it, for
that's
UK
on Dave.
TV?
Yes. Yeah, commissioned by lovely Ian Coyle, who I used to work with many moons ago as well. So it's a very nice sort of to get everyone back together and carry on with that. And then off the back of that, with Lee's relationship with John and Lucy, obviously, we shot a pilot for Channel 4 also, which features John and his mother-in-law Jill, and that is for Channel 4. It's called John Richards Take My Mother-in-Law. That's going to go out later this year, where John takes Jill to Spain to sort of have a look around and see whether she might want to live there rather than the UK, and avoid the prospect of her moving in with he and Lucy, and hilarity ensues. It's a very, very lovely show. So hopefully that'll do well. That's going out later this year. And then in a couple of months, we film a brand new show again for Channel 4 Entertainment. We're filming a new show hosted by John and Lucy about celebrity couples. It's a studio comedy panel show. So it's John and Lucy hosting with two celeb couples taking part also. And they'll be doing stuff on location, and then they'll be doing rounds and games in studio as well. And then that hopefully transmits next year, not with John and Lucy. We've got something else which I'm hoping to sort of get greenlit quite soon. And God willing, if that happens, then that would be filming next year. I won't say when in case it doesn't happen, but hopefully we've got something going there as well.
Well, congratulations on that success. It sounds, it's a great story. And that I would offer the idea that your ability to get shows commissioned during lockdown was the launch pad for your business. And actually, it sounds like a commissioner's eye when you knew that, how can you make a TV show with not being able to film and using archive and using all these different clips and creating something like almost an event without actually filming anything new. Perhaps only a commissioner could have come up with that idea, knowing what channels must have been looking for in the deep lockdown. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Well, you make it sound a lot better than it actually was. So that's the explanation I'm going to give to everybody now. Thank you, Justin.
Well, that's all right. Well, that's my background in PR. There you go.
Well, exactly.
So, Sohail, I'm speaking to you now. You're in Salford. I'm in Elstree Studios.
Yes.
And you're also involved on the board at Elstree, aren't you?
I am, yeah. I'm a non-exec director, yeah.
Your role is essentially what? I mean, because there's been lots of development. I can see, two huge new stages looming over the lot, which is great to see. And obviously, as we know, massive studio boom right across the UK. Tell us about the role that you have at Elstree as a non-exec director and where you're taking the studios from here.
Basically, this is my 4th year of being a board member. It's a weird one with Elstree because it is a business, but is also owned by the council. And so the board is made up of the managing director, company secretary, councillors that represent the council, and then non-exec directors as well from the industry. And I was hired to be one of those non-exec directors, along with 5 other people from the industry. And we all kind of bring our own sort of experience from different aspects of it. So, James Bennett runs televisual, Steve Smith was at BAFTA and the head of Albert, Heather Jones is amazing, general manager of A&E, and then there's me as well who does stuff, whatever I do. We were brought in especially to sort of like help with what the future of Elstree was going to be, because they knew that at that point Big Brother had been axed, and anyone who's watched the show can see how big a house that was and how much space that took up, and all of that was on the Elstree lot. So that was going to go. So what do we do with that space? Well, I suppose we build new studios and sort of elevate Elstree back to what, hopefully it's always been amazing, but it had so many more studios in it previously. And with such a large space, let's sort of like try and reinstate some of those amazing facilities and make them future proof and make them the best in the business. So we were sort of brought in to sort of say how that could be, what the best sort of line of traffic that would be, the best footprint for the studio, what needed to go into the new stages, and also alongside that, how that will then have an effect on the rest of the studios, like what needed, what do we think could do with changing? Is there a different way of like bins, whatever it is, or something as big as Elstree, and indeed any studio, but something as big as Elstree requires a lot of people keeping an eye on lots of different things and constantly talking about it. We can do this better. This needs changing. This needs updating. Is there a better company that could do that? All that kind of business. So we are very much involved in those decisions and bringing other sort of like aspects of the industry in with our existing relationships and other relationships that we've made whilst there, for whether it's new shows, new films, commercials, whatever it is. And we kind of like bring our expertise together, and hopefully then all of that is fed back into the studios and improved upon in whichever way. But ultimately, the best example, I think, of that now is the opening this year of the Platinum stages, which I was very fortunate to go to the actual official opening of. And I was like, honestly, it'd been a while since anybody had set foot on the lot because of COVID. So we were there to make all the decisions, saw a little bit of construction, then it kind of went away a little bit and all the meetings were on Zoom, and then we kind of came back together. So my first time seeing it all completely done was the day we did the official opening. And honestly, just I almost welled up when I walked on. I couldn't believe it when I saw it, because it's only when you walk, well, that you're there, so you know what it looks like. But when you walk through the lodge and then walk in, when you look left, before you could see all the way down to the end, and now you can see all the way down to the end, but there's this massive, really pretty studio there, these two massive studios which are connected. And to know that I was a little cog in the decision making of these two things, which hopefully are going to have a legacy, because they're really well built, they are future proof, they're sustainable, all of these things, and obviously they're going to provide amazing equipment and opportunity for whoever films in there. I mean, I can't say who's in there at the minute. I don't know if it's common knowledge, but there's something in there which is pretty cool, in my opinion. I think that can only be beneficial for the studios, but also the surrounding economy as well of right. Elstree and Boreham Wood. And off the back of building the studios, we also redid the bar area, which I'm sure lots of people have seen. It's fine if you're nipping in, let's say it was fine. Now it's absolutely fantastic. It's a proper restaurant. It's sort of has wonderful food provided by Soul Deli. I sound like a commercial now, but I'm just very, very proud of it, and I'm very happy to have been involved.
No, very good. I mean, obviously we know that the Crown has been in residence here for the last number of years. Yeah. So, there's some amazing productions that you see coming in and out of.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll I'll get you on the phone a little bit later. You can talk about my rent. Maybe we can have a quick chat about that. What do you think?
I can't quite hear you. I think the line's breaking up. I'm not quite sure.
And now it's time for Sohail's story of the week, the TV industry story that's caught his eye in the past 7 days. What's your story of the week, Sohail?
My story of the week this week is the new Lord of the Rings series on Amazon Prime Video. It looks amazing. I enjoyed it when I watched it. I'm flabbergasted at the budget, because it's 870 million quid for 10 episodes, apparently, which is kind of close to the entire budget of BBC One and more than double of BBC Two. So it's it blows my mind that one show, however good or bad someone thinks it is, one show could cost more than an entire channel's output in a year. I mean, that's mental, isn't it?
It is. It's remarkable. And actually, saying how good or bad it is, we don't know, do we? Because actually, they've been banning any sort of reviews, Amazon, on Prime. So you actually going now, you cannot see any reviews. There's been a bit of a backlash from real hardcore Tolkien fans, and I think a little bit of this is anti-woke as well, because it's a very diverse cast as well. Yeah. So at the moment, there are no reviews on Amazon Prime. So
No.
we'll see how that, maybe we'll go back to word of mouth. It is a ridiculous budget, let's face it. It's amazing. But I think the whole thing, I've read somewhere that it's going to last for 5 seasons. So, that's if it's 1 billion quid per season, then that is quite remarkable. But, I guess it'll last as long as it's making money for Amazon and everyone doing their Prime membership and shopping and all the rest of it.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? It's kind of like if they can justify spending that because you're getting your return, then, more power to them. But I just kind of think when the phrase at the moment is cost of living crisis, will you pay £80 a year to retain Amazon Prime when that might cover, albeit 80 quid, but 80 quid is 80 quid. And if you need £80, then for something else, it might not seem that attractive. And especially as you say, 5 years at $1 billion a year, that's a lot of Prime subscriptions. And I know they're saying that they've got 25 million, as of today anyway, they've got 25 million viewers for episode 1, but there's no way of counting how much of the show people have actually watched, whether that's 20 seconds or the whole hour. It's a weird one. I thought it was all right, although, I will rock the boat and say that I much preferred House of the Dragon.
Ooh, right, okay. Well, that's the other dragon-based blockbuster that's it's battling out with at the moment.
It's all about the dragons.
And now it's time to find out your hero of the week and who or what, Sohail, you're going to tell to get in the bin. So, first of all, who's your hero of the week?
My hero of the week generally is political satire, but I'm going to give that moniker to Joe Lycett for what he did this week, because I thought it was absolutely perfect on Laura Kuenssberg's show, because it just highlighted how utterly ridiculous the political situation is in this country, and indeed how it's covered on TV, because he didn't raise his voice, he didn't say anything controversial. All he did was say that he was right-wing and he agreed with everything that Liz Truss said and stood for. And I thought it was the funniest thing I've seen in ages. And I felt a little bit sorry for Laura in that she didn't know exactly how to sort of take it or how to follow up on it. But at the same time, if you're going to sort of say we're booking comedians to be funny or have an alternative point of view, then you need to be able to get out of them what you think you're going to get out of them. And all he did was prove how ridiculous politics are on TV and in general these days by agreeing with what our, as of today, new Prime Minister, elected by 81,000 people, what she believes in, and he agreed with it, and everyone's going mad about it. I think it's the funniest thing I've seen in ages.
Yeah, it was dripping in irony.
Oh, completely.
So we'll see if we can put a clip in the episode description for anybody who hasn't seen that. And what about getting in the bin? Who or what are you going to tell to get in the bin, Sohail?
This sounds like I'm being really political, so apologies, it's quite boring, but I am going to tell Nadine Dorries to get in the bin and just stay there and have lots of other people pour lots of trash into the bin to make sure she doesn't get out of there. I've never seen such a ridiculous human being in my entire life. The fact that she has been forced upon us in that role of the DCMS whilst not understanding a thing about her, not only her role and what it entails, not understanding how the license fee is split up, thinking that, Channel 4 is awarded a license fee, and then saying that Channel 5 worked better after it was privatised. I mean, the woman made gaffe after gaffe after gaffe, and quite honestly, looked drunk to me every time she was on TV and was just self-serving. So I think she can absolutely get in the bin, and hopefully now she's resigned today, we'll never hear from her again unless she's got one of her ridiculous books out where they're about as well written as those old Mills and Boon ones from the 70s. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully we won't hear from her again until she gets a peerage, I'm sure, but we won't have to put up with her too much longer, I don't hope.
For the second time in this week's show, Nadine Dorries has been mentioned, and not a great surprise. But Sohail, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really fascinating to hear about your background, the way that you've climbed up the greasy pole of TV. So congratulations on all your success, and all the best with those new shows that you're producing at King of Sunshine, and look forward to seeing you at our next event, wherever that may be.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Justin.
Well, that's about it for episode 113. Thanks again to Stu and Sohail. Really enjoyed our discussions. I hope you did too. If you did, please share this week's show with friends and colleagues. Don't forget to visit TellyCast.com, where we have exclusive features and information about all of our upcoming events. TellyCast is edited by Ian Chambers and recorded in London. Until next week, stay safe